Lando makes a huge statement about Max's win. Lewis says the W15 in Brazil was the worst it has ever been, and Fernando suffered from the grueling Brazilian Grand Prix. Do consider subscribing. Let's get into the latest F1 news. Lewis Hamilton was very open about his frustrations as he expressed to the Mercedes team that his car, the W15, was the worst he had ever experienced, especially after finishing the Brazilian Grand Prix in a disappointing 10th place. Hamilton had a really tough time at the Interlagos circuit this weekend, a track where he has celebrated victory 3 times before. This time, however, he could only manage to walk away with a single point and a sore back. The weekend started poorly for him, as he complained of significant back pain during the first practice session on Friday, where he struggled with a bouncing car that didn't seem to cooperate. Late in the session, he asked his race engineer Pete Bonington just how much longer they had left, saying, "I'm actually in a bit of pain, mate. How much longer do we have?" He learned that there was one more lap to complete. As the weekend continued, things for Hamilton did not improve. He lacked the necessary pace in both the sprint qualifying and the sprint race itself, ultimately finishing in 11th place. His luck didn't change on Sunday morning either, as he found himself eliminated from qualifying in 16th position. Frustrated by his car's performance, he muttered, "Damn car," as he made his way back to the Mercedes garage after the disappointing outing. When speaking to reporters after his teammate George Russell managed to qualify for Q3 and secure a spot on the front row of the grid, Hamilton lamented, "The car I have right now, it's the worst I've ever driven." This was a sentiment he reiterated to the Mercedes team after the 71-lap race concluded. Upon crossing the finish line in 10th place, he communicated over the radio saying, "That was a disaster weekend, guys. That's the worst the car's ever been. But thank you for continuing to try. Great job. To all the guys that are pissed off, if this is the last time that I get to perform, it's a real shame it wasn't great, but I'm grateful to you all." While his teammate Russell managed to finish the Grand Prix in a respectable 4th place, Hamilton could only recover to 10th, finishing nearly 30 seconds behind Russell. "We were just slow, it was really tough," he shared with Sky F1 after the race. "But I do really want to say a big thank you to the guys in the garage. They turned up super early this morning and still did a great job throughout the weekend." He acknowledged that he understood the disappointment that everyone at the factory would feel, especially since the team had a good chance of winning with Russell performing well. Hamilton faced serious issues with porpoising throughout the weekend and expressed his concerns about the setup of the W15. He described it as like a plank of wood, emphasizing that there seemed to be no suspension, and it felt like the car was just bouncing off the tires. "Can't get on the power anywhere," he added. He went on to explain that this was the worst ride he had ever experienced, particularly when taking corners, calling it just so stiff. He expressed hope that the next tracks wouldn't have the same bumpy conditions, noting that he felt the last 3 circuits might be better. "I could happily go take a holiday," he commented, reflecting on his difficult experience. The results from the race meant that Russell overtook Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship standings, gaining 2 points more than Hamilton, who now sat in 6th place while Russell was in 7th. Currently, Mercedes sits in 4th place in the Constructors' Championship, trailing behind Red Bull by 162 points, while holding a comfortable 296-point lead over Aston Martin. Lando Norris believes he got unlucky in the Brazilian Grand Prix, as Max Verstappen came through to win from his 17th place grid slot. The championship rivals had very different fortunes on Sunday at Interlagos, as a poor qualifying turned into joy for Max Verstappen, while Lando Norris could only salvage 6th place from his pole position. Norris, starting from pole position, lost out to Mercedes' George Russell off the line, and spent most of the first half of the race sitting behind his compatriot as the weather conditions remained treacherous. Verstappen, having started from 17th due to an unfortunately timed flying lap in Q2 that knocked him out even before his 5-place grid penalty for an engine change was applied, quickly carved his way through the pack and latched onto the back of Charles Leclerc in 6th as the race-changing events began. Leclerc pitted for fresh tires as the rain intensified, while the virtual safety car was deployed due to Nico Hülkenberg getting beached in the escape area at Turn 1. Attempting to capitalize, Russell and Norris both pitted, just as the VSC ended. This promoted Esteban Ocon and Max Verstappen into 1st and 2nd, as the duo took the gamble of staying on their intermediates, waiting for either a red flag or for conditions to improve. The red flag did come moments later as Franco Colapinto crashed, meaning the race stopped and allowed everyone to change tires for the restart, meaning it was Ocon and Verstappen leading the way, having been able to change tires for free, with Norris in fourth for the restart. But errors would follow from Norris, as he went off at turn 4 before a more catastrophic mistake at turn 1 on a later safety car restart sent him back down to 7th. McLaren teammate Oscar Piastri moved aside to let him take 6th. With Verstappen winning by almost 20 seconds after slicing his way past Ocon and setting multiple fastest laps, the result all but ended Norris's hopes of a maiden championship win, and the British driver wasn't in top form as he spoke to media after the checkered flag. "Yeah, you can change your tires under the red flag. That's what the others did. So just unlucky, unfortunate," he said. "Sometimes it just goes your way, you know. So nothing we did wrong. I don't get what people say. Staying out was not the right thing to do. It shouldn't have been red flagged, but obviously there was the crash in the end, which caused the red so just. That's life sometimes. You take a gamble, it's paid off for them. It's not talent or, it's just luck, so just a bit unlucky." Having embarked on the second half of the race in 4th place, with everyone back on a level playing field, the McLaren man said he felt this position was the maximum possible for him had he not made the mistakes he went on to do. "I mean, I still made a couple of mistakes in the end. I had cars on my left, on my right, I locked the rears, and I went off," he said of his safety car restart. "I lost 2 positions, so a little bit unfortunate, my own fault. So, not a perfect race for me, but I think no matter what 4th was the best anyone could do today of the people who boxed and didn't get lucky, but otherwise, we'll just keep our heads down." Having pitted under the VSC in an attempt to reduce the time lost in the pits, Norris had been heard requesting to pit even earlier, and he defended McLaren's decision to come in when he did. "It was the right time to box. Yeah, it was the right thing," he said. "So no regrets, just unlucky. It's a silly rule that no one agrees with red flags, but you'll always agree with it when it benefits you, you know." So yeah, every driver said that they don't agree with it and they wanted it changed. So it's just unfortunate, but it's the rule. You win some, you lose some. It benefits them today. Having had the world at his feet after qualifying as he snatched pole position to capitalize on Verstappen's misfortunes, the British driver said he felt he'd been unlucky and there wasn't much more on the cards for him. "Quite easy. I did all I could today, that's all," he said, when asked how easy it would be for him to digest the result. "Max won the race. Good on him, well done, it doesn't change anything for me. It's been an up and down weekend for sure. Not a lot more I could do. I'm sure George probably feels like he could have won the race today. He deserved it more than anyone else, and I probably would have finished 3rd realistically. So it's tough. Max probably would have come through anyway and probably beaten us, but yeah, just unlucky for us. Nothing more than that. I made a couple of mistakes, which cost me a couple of positions in the end." Untelevised footage from the Brazilian Grand Prix has uncovered the moment Fernando Alonso climbed gingerly out of his Aston Martin cockpit at the end of a punishing race at Interlagos. Having started 9th after a crash in the delayed Sunday morning qualifying session, Alonso endured a challenging race en route to a distant 14th place in Sao Paulo. With his Aston Martin car struggling with extreme porpoising, Alonso was heard issuing an anguished team radio message to his team in the closing laps. "I will finish the race for the mechanics," the 2-time world champion said. "They did a very good job today. But my back is hurting, man. This bouncing is not normal." A clip filmed by a fan from the pit and paddock building at Interlagos has revealed how Alonso struggled to haul himself out of his car in Parc Fermé at the end of the race. In the clip, Alonso is greeted by 2 Aston Martin mechanics as he slowly lifts himself up into a standing position. Alonso is then seen resting on the halo of his car for approximately 15 seconds as one mechanic pats the veteran on the back while comforting him. At this point, Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz, who retired from the race after 38 laps after a crash, is seen arriving at the scene having returned from the infield section of the circuit. Sainz stops momentarily and appears to look concerned for his Spanish compatriot before proceeding to the weighing area. Alonso then hops slowly out of his car and is embraced by the mechanic, who continues to comfort him, before walking away with his head bowed. Alonso's physical struggles capped off a dreadful day for Aston Martin, who were forced to revert to a previous specification after both drivers crashed out of qualifying and saw Alonso's teammate Lance Stroll fail to start after an issue on the formation lap. Speaking to reporters, Alonso described his race as a nightmare, having struggled with a brake issue as well as his other ailments, and admitted he probably would have withdrawn from the race if his mechanics had not put in so much work to repair his car after qualifying. He said, "It was a lot of bouncing, a lot of porpoising in the second half of the race. I don't know why. It was a tough race, we were out of the points. I think in any other circumstances, probably I would have stopped. But the mechanics did an incredible job before the race to put the car ready on the grid, so I had to finish for them. But it was a difficult race. After this morning, we had to go back to a less performing package on the car, so the race was a little bit of a slower pace from our side. Then we had a brake issue. I think Lance had a brake problem in the formation lap, and I had the brake issue after all the restarts, where the brake balance goes completely rearwards. It's like braking with a handbrake. So all in all, it was a nightmare out there, but we need to get better for the next 3 races." Alonso's physical woes came after he missed his Thursday media duties for the second race in succession, with Aston Martin confirming on the eve of the Brazilian GP weekend that the 43-year-old had briefly returned to Europe for specialist treatment for an intestinal infection. Alonso revealed that he felt compelled to fight through the pain barrier as a tribute to the people affected by flooding in the Spanish city of Valencia, and he described the Brazilian GP as a setback in his recovery from his recent physical issues. He explained, "It was painful for sure. The lead into this race was a lot of preparation from my side, a lot of checks, a lot of work, a lot of physio, doctors in order to come here to Brazil, so it was a lot of effort from everybody. Same effort as the mechanics put in today. It was not comfortable in the car, but there are people worse than me. Also in Valencia, we have these terrible images and people struggling, so I had to struggle through a couple of laps for everybody. All the checks have been done. I check everything the last 2 or 3 days. We did a lot of work on my condition. I think after this race, we have a setback for sure on my body. So for the next 4 or 5 days, we have to reset everything." Having learned a valuable lesson in the year 2023 about the wisdom of betting against Max Verstappen, Helmut Marko was determined to recoup some of the money he lost during the Abu Dhabi race last season. He decided to place a bet on the Red Bull driver to finish on the podium in Brazil, hoping this time that his instincts would not lead him astray. Verstappen not only met Marko's expectations, he exceeded them in a spectacular fashion. As Marko described it, Verstappen won the Grand Prix ascending from the 17th position on the starting grid. This feat is not unusual for Verstappen, and Marko has a long history of betting on the incredible talent of Red Bull's star driver. However, just a season ago, Marko made the mistake of betting against Verstappen, not believing that the Dutch driver could achieve a pole position or secure a place on the front row at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. In an impulsive moment, Marko laid down a wager of $500 with Christian Horner, who is the team principal at Red Bull, and he ended up losing that bet. This loss came about after Verstappen proved his critics wrong by recovering from being half a second off the pace during the 3rd practice session to ultimately clinch pole position by a mere 1/10 of a second ahead of his competitor Charles Leclerc. Reflecting on that surprising turn of events, Marko admitted, "I never believed that we could come back for qualifying the way that we did. I should have known better than to underestimate Max." Verstappen, on the other hand, was optimistic that Marko had finally gained some wisdom from this experience. He remarked that Marko needed to have a clear understanding that betting against him was never a wise move. Fast forward a few months later as the 2024 Formula One season kicked off in Bahrain, and once again Marko found himself placing a bet on Verstappen. This time around, he wagered $50 with Gianpiero Lambiase, Verstappen's race engineer, who expressed doubts about whether Verstappen could secure pole position in his RB20. In a twist of fate, Verstappen not only won the qualifying round, but in doing so, helped Marko win the bet as well. However, Marko humorously noted that he would have to share his winnings with Verstappen. "I earned $50, but I have to give $25 of that to Max. He's a tough negotiator," he laughed after the race. Marko continued his friendly betting rivalry with Lambiase during the Brazil race weekend, where they made another wager concerning whether Verstappen, who had to start the race from the 17th position, could reach the podium. While Marko confidently believed that Verstappen could accomplish this feat, Lambiase was less optimistic. Marko took the affirmative stance, stating confidently that Verstappen would indeed make it onto the podium, while Lambiase disagreed. As it turned out, Verstappen surpassed everyone's expectations, not just finishing on the podium, but winning the race by an astonishing margin of 20 seconds. With Max's engineer, I bet that Max would finish on the podium. GP didn't think so, Marco shared with The Telegraph. We put $100 on it. But just to clarify, I only said he would finish on the podium, not necessarily win. Max always aims to do more than what is expected. Perhaps next time, Helmut Marko will think twice before doubting his world champion. Verstappen delivered an exceptional performance in challenging wet conditions at the Interlagos circuit, which put him in a strong position to almost guarantee his 4th championship title. He now maintains a remarkable 62-point lead over Lando Norris with only 3 races left in the season. He was in a world of his own, Marko observed while speaking to Sky Deutschland. When he had a clear track ahead of him, he literally flew. He pulled off some sensational overtaking moves that left everyone in awe. I said he would reach the podium, but under such impressive circumstances, everything exceeded our wildest expectations. This is the perfect response to all the challenges we have faced recently. As Verstappen continued to receive praise for his outstanding control of the car in the challenging wet conditions, Marko disclosed that he was also advocating for the race to be halted when the heavy rain began to pour down on the track. During that period of intense rainfall, he strongly urged officials to stop the race, Marko revealed. It doesn't make sense to me why they insisted on running 2 laps that were so dangerous. Regarding the World Championship chase, which could mark Verstappen's 4th consecutive title, Marko remarked with confidence, "It is now within reach." The sensational double podium for Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly in Brazil has been a big boost for Alpine for a variety of reasons, with its 3-place jump in the constructors' standings potentially making a 30 millers difference at year's end. Ocon and Gasly appeared at the front after deciding to delay their only pit stops in a rain-affected Interlagos race, which gave them track position over the cars that dove into the pits for fresh intermediates. Then a well-timed red flag allowed the Alpine pair, as well as Red Bull racing driver Max Verstappen, to change their tires without losing time ahead of a rolling restart. Ocon was initially able to pull away from Verstappen, but after another safety car, the Dutchman comfortably passed Ocon to win his first race in 11 Grand Prix. There was arguably more elation at Alpine than at Red Bull, with Alpine having endured a torrid time this year, then suddenly seeing its points tally triple thanks to Ocon's and Gasly's heroics as they joined Verstappen on the podium. The silverware isn't just a major boost for the Enstone squad and incoming team principal Oliver Oakes, but it may also make a $30 million difference in prize money as the team vaulted from 9th to 6th, past Haas F1 team NRB with 3 rounds to go. For me, it's just a great result for the team. Across Enstone and Viry, that's a big result after last couple of years, or even the beginning of this year, Oakes said. This does help us to keep the confidence going in the team. Since I arrived after the shutdown, I could see already the build-up to Austin with the sort of tempering of expectations, because it has been really hard to develop a car, especially in season. In Austin, I was sort of full of praise for the fact we brought performance to the car, and it was nice to back that up in another way with points in Mexico. And then I think here to see another improvement on that. It definitely does help. Credit to everyone at Enstone and Viry, because for them it does mean a lot. You can see that. The drivers didn't put a foot wrong in tricky conditions. And also, strategy, those calls, everything, it was a good day. For Gasly, it was the reward for the way he and Ocon, friends turned rivals turned teammates, were able to work together to try and help Alpine get through its roughest patch in F1 yet. I think we can be very proud of the way we've pushed the team forward, Gasly said. It's been tough, but we've always tried to push the team in the right direction to never give up. And on a day like today, even when the car has misbehaved for the majority of the season, everyone tried to bring their A game, and it was just an historical day for the team. So, I'm very proud for everyone working in the team to achieve such a performance. That's it for this video. I'll see you around.